By providing space for constant evolution, we can all transform how we view ourselves and the world around us.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Unfortunately, the story I'm going to tell you is a story of a mother's worst nightmare, a story of gut-wrenching pain, and a story of unthinkable tragedy. But I'm also here to tell you my story that is a story of hope. It is a story of healing. It is a story of resilience. And it is a story of transformation. But first of all, let me take you back to July 16th, 2014, the day our lives changed forever. And on this day, I was driving to our local library to pick up our 7-year-old daughter from a card-making class. And I greeted her at the door, and she said to me, "Mommy, please, please, can't I walk the 2 blocks home?" So I acquiesced, and I said, "I'll follow along in my car to try and keep pace." But as fate would have it, traffic was bad, and I couldn't keep up with her pace, and I couldn't keep her safe. And as she skipped along the street and crossed on a green light, a car approached the intersection with the intention of turning right. He looked left for cars, and he forgot that my daughter was there. He accelerated forward, and he hit and killed her. On that day, I lived my worst nightmare. The natural order of things is that I had always been taught my whole life that children outlive their parents was no longer my reality. My reality was one of unthinkable pain. And I had no griever's toolkit to help me manage this. What parent expects to need it? So for weeks and months, I felt untethered, and I just functioned in autopilot. And then one day, I had a transformational moment that changed my healing journey forever. And I want to share with you what that moment was. I had a vision, and this vision took me back to the delivery room, the day that Georgia was born. And it was almost like a Lion King Simba moment when the doctors raised her up high and presented her to the world. And then all of a sudden, the music stopped, the joy evaporated, and the doctors turned to me and they said, "But wait a second, we have to tell you something. You're only gonna have her for 7 years. But we can wave our magic doctor wand and we can reverse time. And you will never experience the pain of her loss. But that means she will never be born." And then I realized I would never experience the joy of her life. And they said to me, "So you have a choice. What's your choice?" And in that moment, that transformational moment, I realized I would rather have her for 7 years than to never have her at all. And that was the day that my Griever's Toolkit was born. It was just the beginning, but I was on my journey to become a survivor, not a victim. And over the course of the next 4 years, there are 4 things that I learned that were pivotal to my healing journey. And the first lesson I learned was that attitude is a choice. The second lesson I learned was that obstacles are opportunities. And the third lesson I learned is don't ever ask why. And the fourth lesson I learned is that acceptance is liberating. But before I tell you about those 4 life lessons, I want to level the playing field. Because I'm sure that each and every one of you in this audience are looking up at me and saying, but you hold the pain trump card. You've lived every parent's worst nightmare. But I'm here to tell you that's not true. I'm here to tell you that I know that each and every one of you have had loss, grief, pain, adversity, and challenges. Whether it's loss of a relationship, whether it's loss of a partner, whether it's loss of a parent, whether it's loss of a job, financial instability, loss of getting into the school of your choice, the team of your choice, we're all the same. Pain is universal. It's how we cope with it that makes all the difference in the world. So let me start with my first lesson, and that is that attitude is a choice. And what I realized was that I was the only one standing in the way of my healing journey. It was my choice. And my vision is what helped me. It helped me to reframe the expectations that I had as the parent of Georgia and what my life would look like. And it helped me reframe the expectations that I had of my daughter's life and what that would look like. And this shift was transformational. Because what I realized was that her 7 short years on this earth were not a punishment. They were a gift. And all of a sudden, I didn't feel robbed. I didn't feel cheated. I felt grateful. And what it taught me was that the meaning that we attach to any adversity in our life can either be a moment that empowers us or a moment that keeps us stuck. The next tool in my toolkit is that obstacles are opportunities. And sadly, I think that we are too often falsely taught that the best lives lived are those that are absent from challenges or adversity. And I think this is false. And I think it's so unhelpful because obstacles are a given. Pain is a given. It's what we do with it. It's whether we work through it, whether we face the pain and make the choice to face the pain. And when I chose to face the pain, I had to ask myself some really difficult questions. And the difficult questions like, how do I get unstuck? How do I turn my sadness to happiness? How do I turn my fear into opportunity? And the glaring answer that came to me is that I need to fill the hole in my heart. But how do I do that? And what I decided to do was to give to the world the joy that was absent for me. And that looked like keeping Georgia alive, keeping her alive and giving her a legacy. And so what I did was I embarked on a $1.7 million fundraising opportunity to build a playground in her memory. And that filled that hole for 4 years. But what I also learned, and it was my 4-year-old son at the time who helped me learn this, We were driving home in the car from a skating lesson that he had taken, and he was telling knock-knock jokes, and we were laughing and having a great old time. And then an ambulance passed by, and ambulances are my trigger. It takes me back to the day that Georgia was killed. And in that moment of laughter and joy, a tear streamed down my face. And I realized that grief is not the absence of joy. It's just the presence of pain. And that joy and pain can live side by side. We can experience them simultaneously. And in that moment, it helped me learn that if we release our pain, we can leave space for joy. The third lesson I learned, and I learned it the hard way, is never ask why. Because I did ask why. As I muddled through trying to figure out why the world would do this to me, I asked myself, why George's life? Why would you do this to our family? Why didn't I wait one more minute at the library before we left? Why did I let her walk home? And what I realized was, you can't do that because you'll never get the answer. And if you do get the answer, you're not going to like it. And it just becomes this vicious spiral of blame and shame and guilt. And on that day, it taught me that life is unfair. Good things happen to bad people, and bad things happen to good people. That's just the way the world works. And the fourth lesson in my toolkit is that acceptance is liberating. And again, it was my 4-year-old son that taught me this lesson. And a year after Georgia died, the trial was held for the driver. And just before the trial, my son turned to me and he said, "Mommy, is the driver who killed Georgia a bad man?" And I had to think long and hard about my answer because I knew that my answer would impact his healing journey. And I turned to him and I said, "No, Finn, he's not a bad man. He's a good man who just made the worst mistake a person can possibly make. And I could have been that driver on that day. He's not unlike any of us." And what I was taught by my son's question was that in order to get over my anger, my bitterness, my resentment, I needed to forgive. And before the trial, I was asked if I would like to give a victim impact statement. And I did. And I took the opportunity in my victim impact statement to forgive the driver. And I'd like to read you a little piece of what I wrote. "My job today is not to play detective or lawyer or judge. We leave that to the people whose job that is. But what I do know is that I choose not to wake up vengeful, spiteful, or angry towards you. I choose to heal. And anger doesn't heal us. So it's important that I let you know that I forgive you. I know the pain of your mistake must be agonizing, and the weight of your crime will be the cross you will bear for life. My belief is that we can't change or control the past. We can only choose to make the most of today and learn from our mistakes. One life was cut way too short, and I don't wish the same fate for you. I wish that you live a fruitful, fulfilling life, whereby you can right the wrong of a life taken way too soon by living the life of two people, yours and George's. Thank you for listening, and I really hope that you can look at something painful in your own life and see that it's an opportunity for growth, and it could possibly be a gift. Thank you.